Hi everyone, welcome to Kung Fu Pod. Today we have special guest coach, Control Your Health, Sifu Oscar.
There's a lot of titles there. There's a lot of titles there. Let's just talk about, or go into what we're going to talk about, which is nutrition for kids. So at Walam Kung Fu, we have the pleasure of teaching a lot of children from the ages of 3 all the way up to whatever you consider the child age ending.
Right. Sometimes that's adults, but that's okay. We'll go into the teens for this particular episode.
Yeah, and what we notice, especially and recently, well, not just recently, but all the time, we notice that children are coming sometimes unprepared to thrive in class, to do the best that they can. They're not able to focus. What are the things that you're noticing?
Yeah, I noticed they come in a little bit lethargic and sleepy, even if it's not morning. Sometimes we get tummy aches 5 or 10 minutes into the class, headaches, and sometimes we even have some more disturbance in the GI region that causes us to see what they ate earlier, which is never very pleasant.
It's not pleasant, but then we have facts and say, oh, okay, maybe you shouldn't have had
that. Which is why we're having this conversation today. Honestly, it's out of our concern for the kids and to kind of maybe help guide parents a little bit and help you craft a happier solution to where your kids are going to come more prepared, they're going to feel better, and they're going to thrive at class. Because that's ultimately what we're worried about. Of course, it's never a good thing when we have kids getting sick at the school, but really what we want is for them to have a great class. So share all the secrets.
So here are the secrets, really. The secret is that I'm a nutrition coach with Precision Nutrition. So I am just going to look at all the notes and all the resources that they provided and just go through it, because the resources are out there, but people don't read them. And maybe if I just read them to you.
In your lovely, calming voice.
You know, I just learned a new word. It's mellifluous.
Ooh.
And that's a smooth voice. So just learned that today.
Very nice.
Okay, moving on.
Dropping knowledge.
Okay, so with kids nutrition, I think one of the big things, and it's the same with the adults, is that you are not broken, your child is not broken, you're not a bad person, the children are not bad people. We all have our own struggles with nutrition, right?
Absolutely.
And so, but I think for parents, one of the really big things is that you can and really should and have to set the example.
That's right.
It does start with you, parents who are watching this video. So if the kid's watching it, go get your parents and tell them that we're calling
monkey see, monkey do, right? But it is true. We even talked to that about just even adult clients. Like, if the people in your home are not on board with trying to change some of the habits that you want, it's going to be more challenging. So having that support is really important too. And honestly, it's good for all of us. So let's dive in.
Correct. And we are far from perfect. I had some ice cream last night and enjoyed it, but
not for breakfast.
Not for breakfast.
Which
exactly.
we have heard is a thing sometimes. So.
Right. It was after a very nutritious dinner, and it wasn't that much. Plus, I'm a nutrition professional, so I can do that.
Right.
Okay, so moving on. With Precision Nutrition, one of the things that they found, especially when it comes to nutrition for kids, is you want to start with some really simple basics. Strategy number 1, choose whole, minimally processed foods. Is that a surprise?
Oh my gosh, really? So not in a box or a bag or in a package of some sort, something that grew in the ground or came from an animal.
Right. Now I know that's not always gonna be possible, right? Yeah. But really what you want to try to do is really cut the sugar. And one of the best ways to do that is by reading labels. And you are a master at reading labels, because a lot of times I'm like, oh, let's get this. And you're like, hold on a second. And you just grab it and start reading it. So reading labels is a huge one. I think as a child, my parents always gave us the Pathmark brand, no frills Tostios, not Cheerios, but Tostios, and they didn't taste good. And I vowed that when I was older and I could buy my own cereal,
you could afford the name brand Cheerios.
And I bought a lot of cereal.
They're supposed to be healthy.
And as you know, I used to put away probably a box in one morning.
You would like your cereal in the morning and then fall asleep on the couch.
And then fall asleep on the couch, and then I had some actual health issues, I think, because of my sugar consumption. So try to find ways to cut the sugar. Unfortunately, cereals, which are what is promoted mainly to children, are 50% or more sugar. Yeah. It's just an incredible amount of sugar. So that's one. Reading the labels, getting the right stuff. What are some of the things you would say are some of the right stuff?
I really love having eggs because it's pretty simple. You can have it of plethora of ways, but also people don't ever really think about fish very much in the morning, but being Asian American. We do a lot of real foods. And so you can even have veggies in the morning. Like that's a thing. I think it's so sad that there's not more veggies in the morning time. I don't know why that is.
I think it's because people don't know how to cook them the way you do. So that could be one. So, you know, getting whole foods means thinking about carbohydrates that don't come from a box, protein, get your vegetables if you can, right? And then as far as also healthy fats, right? Because you can just look for dietary fats, which are really critical for kids as they're growing up as well. So that is one thing. And small substitutions can add up. So one thing is you don't have to do a complete rehaul of your breakfast. You can just...
Baby steps.
Baby steps. And one of the precision nutrition foundational habits are to always think about, well, what can I add instead of take away? So you mentioned vegetables. So maybe start with a similar breakfast, but say, you know what, we're just going to add vegetables. Adding is a really great way to...
Yeah, because one of our students, they mentioned, oh, we like peanut butter or almond butter is a great substitute as well. But why don't you have it on some celery, perhaps, right? We do like to kind of not overload on the sugar in the morning, but if your kids are absolutely like not ready for that, even a little on an apple would still be a better choice than the box cereal.
Right.
So it's still about just like progressively getting better and making smarter choices, not perfect choices.
I like that. And so then strategy number 2 on this precision nutrition article, which we'll provide a link for it as well, is to incorporate fruits and vegetables, which is huge. So adding celery with your peanut butter, or maybe putting it on an apple. Don't think again that you have to be perfect, but find ways that you can add these things in before completely eliminating or being too militant, saying we're changing everything. Okay, so that's kind of important when it comes to adding the fruits and vegetables. The other thing is, sometimes kids say, I don't like the taste of vegetables. Now, you already answered that by the way that you grew up. It was cooked and they're delicious. And I agree.
Smoothies.
Smoothies are great.
Smoothies are a great choice.
Just try different ways of making it. Roasting it, maybe putting it in a soup. Ton of different ways that you can mix
olive oil and garlic does just wonders for veggies. And
magic.
Just magic. Like just a little broil in the oven, they get a little crispy.
And a lot of times parents also... we understand how busy you are. Anyone is busy these days, but think about maybe some meal prep beforehand. That can go a really long way.
Or have the kids meal prep.
Bam. Perfect. Because we don't have our own children, but except we do say that the Waldom kids are our kids.
Yes, but
we have had a lot of kids here. And you would be shocked. I don't think there's ever been a child who's here that when you're cooking and you invite them to participate in the prep, that they're not excited to do
It's a win-win. I love having a sous chef, to be honest. So it's a win-win. Yeah.
Right. So definitely involving them.
And they're usually more excited about eating that food because they've had a hand in helping prepare it.
Right. And then the other thing is, you parents who are watching should also be eating vegetables if you want your children to be eating vegetables, because they are going to mimic what you do. So that is super important. Vitamins and minerals is a third strategy. So newsflash here, the nutrient-poor foods that you're consuming can lead to nutrient deficiencies. So you need to eat these whole foods, more fruits and vegetables, because that will get you a lot of the nutrients that we're missing. And even don't be afraid to get your children to try some vitamins if that's what they need to replace and to maybe be a nice little buffer for some of those vitamins.
Yeah, just maybe like a multivitamin is always a good choice too.
Perfect. And a huge one. Coming up here is hydration. Now, I personally prefer water with maybe some lemon or lime because I like the flavor of that. I like plain water as well. We know, because we see a lot of kids, they always go for the Gatorade. Like if there's a choice between water and Gatorade,
and
they're going to go...
most colorful one, like the blue one, or
and if they're sweating a lot, it's possible that, maybe they need some of the potassium and the electrolytes to replenish that. I'm not saying that they don't, but look at the portion sizes, because a lot of the kids that we see are about this tall, like maybe like 2 or 3 feet tall, but they come with a Gatorade that's about that big, and they try to finish that entire thing. So that's one thing, is that they're getting liquid calories that are not necessary. But the other thing is they're also just not drinking enough water.
Yeah.
And it's a problem that also adults have, that you're feeling hungry and peckish and you want snacks, and really it could be that you were dehydrated, and that dehydration leads to overeating, things that you shouldn't be eating, but also lack of focus, brain fog, things like that.
And just a quick tip for those that are super I can't drink plain water, you can over time take your Gatorade and start to dilute it, and just over time make it less and less and less and less. So then it becomes like from bright cherry red, pink red to like light pink, you know, but it can be gradual, because I understand that it's very difficult to tame your palate. But I will tell you, once you withdraw from all that sugar, when you go back to it, you'll realize how overwhelming it is. So, but you have to kind of taper off if you can, unless you're ready to just like cut it out of your life. That's great. But for kids especially, if they can at least just see that it's still the color, but then you've diluted it, you're already at least taking out half the sugar content.
This is actually an amazing tip, not just for kids, but also for adults.
Yep.
And also, don't be afraid to gamify that, because that's something that you can do with the kids, where you're like, all right, well, let's see who wins, who has the clearest liquid. It doesn't have to be complete water, but
it's all about winning.
Yes, we're all about winning. You do have to keep in mind, you know your children best, but if they have any kind of food sensitivity, so as Sifu Mimi here says, she loves eggs, so do I. Some kids are sensitive to eggs, so you have to find what's the appropriate substitution for that. So just keep that in mind. And then of course there are, and we're all exposed to various toxins, but you know, you want to try to avoid, just some very common sense, avoid BPA. Avoid maybe feeding very large predatory fish to kids, because they tend to contain more toxins. I'll say this, even though I know it's not always possible, coming from someone who had to go to get government cheese, okay? But you should try to get organic when possible, because there are a lot of things in our foods these days, and if you can try to move towards organic, that is great. But if you're mainly starting on Skittles, that's what your child eats, you don't have to go straight organic right off the bat.
Well,
just go with
and there's a quick tip there too. Like there's certain foods that it's more important that they're organic, and some that not. Like a banana, because it has a peel on it, it's probably okay. Because you're taking it out, right? Or like an orange, but like the things that you're eating, the veggie that's been exposed, and it's hard to get all of the pesticides and all those things off, like you can make choices like and budget accordingly. So there are ways around it. You don't have to go all in, but we can always just kind of try to work our way to being better.
Right. And that's something I noticed you do, where you look and say, okay, yes, we can afford to get the organic greens here, but we're not going to get the organic bananas for you know, so
absolutely.
Right. So you make sure that you are always looking and say, well, what's the best that I can do realistically? And just go there and don't punish yourself, okay? Number 4, and this is a big one, is making sure that kids and adults, that you're eating the right amount. Because it is amazing how easy it is to overconsume. Yep. Especially those highly processed, delicious foods. Mm-hmm. You know, like I said earlier, I could eat probably a whole box of cereal when I ate cereal in the morning. But if you eat something like Oreos, I mean, how easy it is to eat a whole box of Oreos?
Excuse me.
It's not.
Yeah, that's the problem. Your mind isn't gonna process that it's like you're full, because it's fake food. It's not gonna satiate you. So eating slower is important too.
Eating slower
to help you with the portions.
Exactly, and some strategies that seem not to work or that don't work is when you offer food as a reward. You know, if a child is upset, it's like, well, here you go, here's a popsicle. That's probably not a good thing. Another thing that doesn't work is having very strict rules about good or bad foods. Instead of thinking of good or bad, it's probably better to think, we're eating this because we want our bodies to be able to do kung fu or tai chi, if that's something you do. Or, you know, I'm eating this way because I want to be able to run faster or jump higher. Mm-hmm. I want my body to be able to do these things. So it's a good thing to kind of take away those titles of like, this is bad food, that's a good food. Yeah. And also, you may not want to be pushing your child to finish dinner. It could be that they have eaten enough, right? So I, proud member of the Clean Plate Club, I had to learn as I've gotten older that I don't need to finish my plate if my body's already telling me that I'm full. So you're really good at this, at being aware of what the right amount of saying, you know what?
And that is from training though. Right. I wasn't always really good at it. And for parents, I think a really great way to do that is also to put the veggies and the protein on the plate first and let them eat that first. And then like halfway through, you can give them their starch, because they'll just eat. If you give them French fries or potatoes or whatever, like sometimes you'll get that first and then you get full on that and you're not getting the more essential stuff. So kind of doing an ordering of food sometimes helps, or just giving a really small amount of the part that you don't want them to fill up on and more of the veggies, because then you can kind of gauge and see. So that's one of the things I think could be helpful.
And with experience that we've had with the kids is realizing that even as young as 5 years old, 6 years old, is how smart they are and how understanding they are if you're willing to take the time to explain. So as you said, with putting it in the order, you're putting it in an order not as a punishment or as an award, but just like, hey, this is just a way that we're going to eat. And one thing that I think I've thought about when you said that is sometimes we eat a salad of vegetables first because it helps with our digestion as well, and it gets things moving. So try not to also bribe children because hey, if you finish that spinach, you're going to get some ice cream. It's probably not going to be those strategies. Unfortunately, make things a little bit worse.
It also gives them a kind of an emotional relationship with food, which you really don't want because that can become dangerous.
we all have an emotional relationship. Let's try to move away from that and look at it more. Sometimes it's good to look at things like a scientist, where you're thinking, well, the reason I'm eating this is because, again, I want my body to be able to do this, or because I want to be strong, or because I want to live a longer life, right?
Yeah. And I mean, having your kids repeat that is really equally, if not most important.
Yeah.
Because they need to understand why they're doing it, not just because you said so, because if it's because you said so, they're less likely to do it, right? Yeah. They need to decide, like, no, I want to choose to be able to do, this kick in Kung Fu, or wield the sword, or lift this, or do soccer better. And like, they will express their desire to be good at those activities. Then you say, here's the solution, here's the answer, and then they can choose it for themselves.
Yeah, and the nice thing with that too is that when they do eat something that is on the quote unquote, let's just call it the holy process side, not to say the bad, right? But on the process side, they'll notice and let's say they perform poorly in whatever sport they're going to do. You can have a conversation with them and say, well, you know what? Probably that donut that you decided to eat caused you not to have the right amount of energy when you went to class. So maybe we can talk about what are some better strategies so that you're thriving, as we said, in the class.
Absolutely.
So some of the things that do work, of course, eating together as a family, eating slowly, we've talked about, involving the kids, not just in the cooking, but also in shopping and in the meal prep part. Really big one for us here, and for me, is do not keep unhealthy choices in the house. Because the number one rule here is if it's in the house, it's going to get eaten. I, as a fitness trainer and knowing and being full, sometimes just like wander into the cupboard and I'm like, there's nothing here. I have to go out to buy it and I'm too lazy to do it. So if you don't have it in the house, it's very unlikely that it's going to get eaten because we're just not going to probably go out and shop for, a cookie, right? Strategy number 5, this is the big one, which is taking the lead, which we've mentioned multiple times. If you want your children to thrive, you can help them by being the right example. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, to being the right example, because ultimately the children, they're going to pay more attention to what you do than what you say. So you can say whatever you want, but they're going to be looking at your actions, and that's how they're going to be deciding what is right.
I mean, it's a win-win because it's good for you also. Exactly.
And then what about picky kids? Like you might be saying, well, I don't care. Everything you said, my kid's super picky. Well, there's plenty of different things to get nutrients. You've got apricots, cantaloupe, mango, peaches, plums,
I met a kid
nuts.
the other day that said they've never had mango ever, and I almost fainted, right?
Right.
And they were like 12. So there's probably fruit or veggie out there that they've not tried. And you just have to find a way to introduce it that would be most successful. A lot of times peer pressure works, so find a friend that likes veggies and invite them over.
Right, and if you're...
It can be a good influence, right?
Yes.
If there are good influences in their lives, like we have a really great team of kids, they all eat together, then you start to see that everybody wants to eat together and well, right? And so it's important to kind of educate everyone and have a community.
Right, and if for example, there could be also dietary restrictions with, well, at our house we're not eating meat, or my child's not eating meat. There are other protein options, things like beans and vegetarian options. You just have to do a little bit of research to find the right one. Unfortunately, I think our first mentality is, well, this is a little bit too hard to do this, and we're just going to fall back to the way that we've always done it. And there's always options to improve.
Absolutely.
So that is pretty much it. But I wanted to kind of finish up with what are some general guidelines for how much of everything I should be eating. So most macronutrients are usually broken down into carbohydrates, your fats, and your proteins. But with precision nutrition, they like to break down the carbohydrates and take out vegetables from there. So making vegetables its own macronutrient. So you look at your vegetables, your smart carbohydrates, your fats, and your protein. So ideally, well, here's what's great is the way that you can do your servings is just, or portions is just use their hands, because the kids are going to be growing, and as they get bigger, they can eat more, and that's perfectly fine. So typically for vegetables, serving size, fist. We talked about that before. In a day, a child should be getting about 3 to 5 servings, depending on that child. For fruit, servings, that's also a fist. So you can, vegetables, fruit. Fruit does have a little bit more sugar, so just be mindful of that. It's not bad. Also about maybe 2 to 3 servings a day. Your protein, beans, legumes, meat, eggs, 2 to 3 servings a day. That serving size is your palm. If I was in Kung Fu class and you chopped off all my fingers, that
so
should
this would be like a steak of Oscar's hand.
Bam, perfect, exactly.
Filet of
Yeah.
Oscar.
And then for children, for your nice smart carbohydrates, whole grains, things that are going to be nutritious, think of a fist also, and probably 2 to 3 servings is going to be enough
Per day.
per day, not per meal.
Right, per day. So that means not necessarily every meal will have this.
It doesn't have to.
Right.
It doesn't have
Which
to.
is like a sweet potato or even rice or
Right.
quinoa.
Well, listen, Latin background, my dinner was rice, beans, plantains. I probably had 5 to 6 servings of carbohydrates per plate, not even per meal. Like, that's just the first time I got my dish. So just keep that in mind. And then for your healthy fats, thumb is a great way to think about that. These are your nuts, your seeds, your oils, your coconut, avocado, and that they should be looking to get about 2 to 3 servings per day. So,
and honestly, that if you're cooking with oils, that might already be kind of included, so you don't have to think about like over adding that right away.
So kind of in summary for what they should eat, just try to, if you can, move away from things that are processed and start adding things that are more nutrient dense. Then number 2 is how much should they eat? Maybe just eat, if they're eating the right things, they just eat until they're no longer hungry, right? And then what should they drink? Probably mostly water and unsweetened teas. And how do you ensure, this is an important one, healthy bowel movements, adequate fluid, physical activity, and whole plant foods like vegetables, fruits, beans, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. But the number one thing that you as the parents can do to help your children is to adopt healthy habits yourself.
Absolutely. I will do a quick plug, because this is Kung Fu Pod, but for CYH over here, Sifu Oscar also does nutrition coaching. So if you feel like, great, thank you for all that information, I know what to do, I'm going grocery shopping now, I've got this. But if not, you offer like coaching plans where you can kind of take the parents through it, and they can sign up with you for even like a month or 2 months or something like that. And you can get them in the habit, and he can hold you accountable and guide you through that.
To be clear, like, there's no prescription. Like, if you're coming and saying, well, we've got high blood pressure and this, and what should we eat? That I can't help you, because you need, that would be coming from a medical professional.
But this is more just like helping you build the right habits.
But building the right habits, we can definitely help with that. And a lot of times building the right habits will lead to all the good health outcomes that you want as
Absolutely. So you can email you at...
Yeah, email me at oscar@controlyourhealth.net. Any questions, you can just Google Control Your Health, my name Oscar, and it's probably will pop up, and you can find all my contact info there.
All right, thank you so much. And this was really valuable information. And for all the kids out there, there's lots of really yummy foods that you should be really happy to be eating, and hopefully your parents are eating them with you. So thank you all, and we'll see you next time. Bye.